In a small coastal village, nestled between towering cliffs and the roaring sea, there lived a group of people who depended on the bountiful waters for their livelihood. The river that ran through the village was their lifeline, providing them with fresh fish and clean water for their crops. The villagers, with their brightly painted boats and nets hanging to dry under the warm sun, thrived on the gifts of the river. However, the villagers had become careless over the years, and they started dumping their waste and filth into the river, polluting its once pristine waters. The clear, sparkling streams had turned murky, and the lush reeds along the banks began to wither. The sea goddess, who watched over the village from her watery domain deep beneath the ocean waves, grew angry at the disrespect shown to her beloved river. She knew that she had to teach the villagers a lesson to make them understand the consequences of their actions, and so she decided to curse the village. One foggy morning, when the salty air carried a chilling stillness, as the villagers woke up to go about their daily routines, they found themselves unable to move. It was as if an invisible force was holding them in place, freezing their limbs and rooting them to the ground. Birds, startled by the strange silence, took off in great flocks from the thatched rooftops. Panic spread through the village like wildfire, and the villagers soon realized that they were under the sea goddess's curse. As they trembled in fear, a shimmering figure rose from the waters of the river. It was the sea goddess herself, her eyes flashing with anger and determination. Her ethereal figure shimmered like moonlight on water, and her voice boomed like the crashing of waves against the cliffs. "You have desecrated my river with your filth and waste," she thundered. "For your sins you shall pay a heavy price. From now on, before any woman in this village can bear a child, her husband must first lay with the mermaid twins who dwell in the depths of the sea. Only then can your wives conceive. This curse shall plague the land for generations," the sea goddess added. The villagers were horrified by the sea goddess's pronouncement. They knew the mermaid twins she spoke of. They were known as Ishara and Isa, the mermaid twins, said to be the daughters of the sea goddess herself. With their long flowing hair that shimmered like silver under the moonlight, and their iridescent tails that sparkled like precious gems, they were the most beautiful creatures the villagers had ever laid eyes on. At first, the men of the village were hesitant to fulfill their strange and unsettling obligation to the mermaid twins. But as seasons passed and their wives grew desperate to bear children, the men had no choice but to succumb to the whims of Ishara and Isa. And Isa, the mermaid twins, took full advantage of their power, demanding and receiving visits from the men on a regular basis. Their songs, hauntingly beautiful, were said to be enchanting, capable of luring even the strongest of men to their watery domain. The men of the village found themselves drawn to the twins, unable to resist their siren call. Every day, the men of Uyara would line up at the water's edge, awaiting their turn to spend a night with the mermaid twins. As the curse continued to plague the village, the men reluctantly approached the mermaid twins, their hearts heavy with guilt and shame. The twins, with their hauntingly beautiful faces and seductive voices, beckoned the men to the edge of the ocean, where they lay on the rocks, waiting for the inevitable. The air filled with a salty, intoxicating scent, and the men felt the cool touch of the twins' scales against their skin. They could hear the soft whispers of the mermaid voices, promising pleasure and ecstasy beyond their wildest dreams. But as the men succumbed to the mermaid's seduction, a sense of dread washed over them. They knew that their wives would soon be with child, and that they would have to live with the guilt of betraying their loved ones for the rest of their days. For some of the men, the ritual was a source of great excitement and anticipation. They viewed it as a privilege, a rite of passage that would ensure the continuation of their bloodline. But for others, the idea of sleeping with another woman, even a mythical one, before their wives could conceive, was a source of great anxiety and guilt. One such man was Adio, a young fisherman who had recently married his childhood sweetheart, Keza. They had been trying for a baby for months, but so far their efforts had been in vain. For the newlywed couple, Adio and Keza, this tradition was a nightmare. 3 years into their marriage, and Keza still couldn't conceive. Every month, when she got her period, she would cry and pray for a miracle. But it seemed that the mermaid twins were not pleased with her husband, as he had not yet slept with them. Despite the pressure from the villagers, Adio stood his ground and refused to sleep with the mermaid twins. The villagers were outraged and accused Adio of bringing a curse upon the entire village. They demanded that he fulfill his duty as a husband and sleep with the mermaids, but Adio stood firm in his decision. Keza, on the other hand, was worried and feared that she would never be able to bear a child if her husband did not follow the tradition. This made Adio feel powerless and conflicted. He loved his wife dearly and didn't want to betray her by sleeping with the mermaids, but he also wanted to fulfill his duty and give his wife the gift of motherhood. Adio knew that the time was fast approaching for him to fulfill his duty to the village, but the thought of betraying Keza filled him with so much dread and guilt. As the years went by, Adio watched as his friends and neighbors all had children of their own, while he and his wife remained childless. They had tried every remedy and prayer they could think of to conceive a child, but nothing had worked, and their home remained empty and quiet, haunted by the ghost of a child that never was. Adio found himself unable to sleep, tormented by the visions of his wife's tears and disappointment. He knew that he had to find a way to fulfill his obligations to the village without betraying the woman he loved. One night, as the full moon shone brightly in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the village, Adio decided to sneak out of his house and head to the river where the mermaid twins were said to dwell. As he stood gazing out at the swelling waters below, he heard a soft, melodious voice behind him. "Are you here to earn our favor, young man Isa?" one of the mermaid twins asked, her voice like a siren song. Adio turned to see the two mermaid twins floating before him, their tails shimmering in the moonlight. "I am," he replied, his voice trembling, "but I cannot bring myself to betray my wife. Is there no other way for me to fulfill my duty to the village?" Adio asked. The mermaid twins exchanged a knowing glance before turning back to Adio with a smile. The twins started singing with their sultry voices, knowing full well that no man could resist their enchanting song. Adio was fully intoxicated, and before he knew it, they made passionate love under the moonlight. Adio felt a sense of guilt, but also a strange sense of fulfillment. To his amazement, the following month, his wife Keza fell pregnant. The village rejoiced, and Adio and Keza became parents to a healthy baby boy. It seemed like the mermaid twins had finally blessed their union. As the years passed, however, the mermaid twins grew bolder in their demands and insisted on sleeping with the men more than once in order for their wives to finally conceive, causing turmoil and unrest amongst the villagers. The villagers whispered and gossiped about the unnatural arrangements, but the fear of the curse kept them compliant. The mermaid twins had become indispensable to the continuation of their bloodlines, So the twins continued to take advantage of the twisted curse, luring the men into the depths of the sea with their enchanting voices and mesmerizing beauty. Night after night, the twins frolicked in the waters with the men, leaving their poor wives at home, seething with anger and resentment. One day, the wives gathered together and decided that they had had enough. They went to the elders of the village and begged them to intercede on their behalf. They pleaded with them to speak to the mermaid twins and asked them to lift the curse that had been placed on the village. The elders were hesitant at first. They knew the power of the sea goddess, and they feared the consequences of angering her. But they also saw the pain and suffering of the women in the village and knew that something had to be done. So, on a moonlit night, the elders made their way to the shore, where the mermaid twins were known to appear. They called out to them, their voices carrying over the crashing waves. The mermaid twins emerged from the depths, their tails glistening in the moonlight. "Why have you come to us, elders of the land?" they asked in unison, their voices like a siren song. The elders explained the plight of the women in the village, how the curse had brought them nothing but sorrow and shame. They begged the mermaid twins to have mercy on them and lift the curse that had been placed on the village. However, the twins were unwilling to listen to the pleas of the elders or the women of the village. They claimed that the curse was their mother's will and that they were bound to uphold it, no matter the cost. The villagers were disheartened by the response of the mermaid twins, realizing that breaking the curse would not be an easy task. Despite their efforts, the elders were unable to sway the mermaid twins from their curse, leaving the village in a state of despair and hopelessness. The wives of the village were not blind to the plight of their husbands, and their anger began to simmer even more as they watched their beloved spouses become entangled with the mermaid twins. They knew that the curse was unjust, that the mermaids were using their beauty and power to manipulate the men for their own pleasure. The wives of the village grew angrier day by day at the mermaid twins. They felt betrayed by their husbands, who were forced to succumb to the curse in order to conceive a child. Determined to put an end to the curse and rid themselves of the mermaids, the wives banded together and sought out the help of a powerful sorceress who lived deep in the forest. The sorceress, a mysterious and ancient woman with piercing green eyes, listened to their plight with a knowing smile and devised a plan to lift the curse. She explained that, in order to break the curse, the wives would have to undergo a powerful ritual that would fortify them against the wiles of the mermaid twins. Without hesitation, the wives agreed to do whatever it took to end their suffering. The sorceress instructed the wives to sleep in coffins for 7 days and 7 nights to symbolize their rebirth and transformation. The women were hesitant at first, but they knew that this was their only chance to break free from the curse that had plagued their village for generations. So, the sorceress led them to a hidden glade where 6 ornate coffins lay waiting. The wives were instructed to climb inside the coffins and sleep there for 7 days and 7 nights. As the wives lay in their coffins, they felt a strange sense of power coursing through their veins. They could feel their bodies transforming and strengthening, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days passed, the village buzzed with gossip and speculations about the strange rituals the wives were undergoing. Some whispered of dark magic and sacrifice, while others feared for the safety of their beloved wives. But the wives remained resolute, trusting in the sorceress and her ancient paths to guide them through the darkness. Finally, On the seventh night, the wives emerged from their coffins, their eyes gleaming with newfound strength and determination. They were renewed and fortified by the sorceress's magic. They were no longer the meek and subdued women they once were. They were warriors, ready to face whatever challenges lay before them. Armed with newfound strength and determination, the wives set out to confront the mermaids. Ishara and Isa were lounging on the rocks by the sea, their tails shimmering in the sunlight as they basked in their own beauty. The wives approached them, their eyes filled with determination and fire. "We have come to put an end to this curse," one of the wives declared, her voice strong and unwavering. "We will no longer be subjected to your whims and demands. It is time for you to pay for the suffering you have caused our village." The mermaid twins laughed, their voices like twinkling bells as they dismissed the wives' threats. "You think you can defeat us?" Ishara taunted, her eyes flashing with arrogance. "We are immortal beings of the sea. You are nothing but mere mortals." But the wives were not intimidated. They stood their ground, each one drawing upon the power and strength that the sorceress had bestowed upon them. With a collective cry, they lunged at the mermaid twins, determined to strip them of their tails and their mermaid nature. A fierce battle ensued, the sound of clashing waves and ringing voices filling the air. The mermaid twins fought with all their might, but the wives were relentless in their pursuit of justice. With each blow, they pushed the mermaids closer and closer to defeat. The wives fought tooth and nail against the mermaid twins. Ishara and Isa, accustomed to getting their way, were taken aback by the sudden resistance of their adversaries. But the wives fought with a ferocity that surprised even themselves, refusing to back down. Finally, with a burst of energy and determination, the wives succeeded in stripping Ishara and Isa of their tails. The mermaid twins let out a cry of anguish and despair as they felt their power slipping away, leaving them vulnerable and weak. As the last ray of sunlight faded from the sky, the twins transformed into mere mortals, their once beautiful tails replaced by two pairs of human legs. The wives stood triumphantly over them, rejoicing, their faces filled with satisfaction and pride. But they rejoiced too soon. Unbeknownst to the wives, the sea goddess who had placed the curse on the villagers decades ago watched with anger as the wives defeated her mermaid twin daughters, Ishara and Isa. The goddess, with her flowing sea-green hair and eyes that sparkled like the ocean, emerged from the depths of the sea and confronted the wives. She demanded that they pay for what they had done to her precious daughters. The wives, fearful but determined, used all their magical powers to fight back against the sea goddess. But the goddess was too powerful. With a wave of her hand, she caused a massive wave to crash against the shore, threatening to engulf the village and all who lived there. The wives knew they were no match for her wrath. Just as all hope seemed lost, a mysterious figure appeared on the horizon. It was a powerful sorceress who had fortified the wives with magical powers. The sorceress, with her long cloak and eyes that glowed with an otherworldly light, joined forces with the wives. Together, they unleashed a barrage of spells and incantations, the air crackling with magic as they battled the sea goddess and her destructive forces. The sky darkened as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, the very earth shaking beneath their feet. The sea goddess, furious at being challenged by mere mortals, fought back with all her might. But the wives and the sorceress were determined. In an epic showdown, the wives and the sorceress combined their powers to create a barrier of light that surrounded the sea goddess, trapping her in a cage of energy. With a cry of rage and defeat, the goddess vanished, carrying Ishara and Issa, her mermaid twins, with her to avoid being destroyed by the wives and the sorceress. The wives walked back to their village, their heads held high and their hearts filled with a sense of victory. Their village erupted into cheers and applause as the wives and the sorceress stood victorious, their faces shining with triumph and relief. The curse had been lifted, and the villagers could finally live in peace and harmony once more, thanks to the bravery and determination of the wives who had fought for their freedom. The moral lessons of this story are numerous. Firstly, we should learn to respect boundaries. The curse by the sea goddess wouldn't have existed if the villagers had respected the sanctity of the river. Another major lesson is that as humans, we are capable of more than we can imagine, as long as we are determined. The wives defeated their oppressors through determination and unity. Thank you for joining us on this journey of wisdom and inspiration. If today's story moved you, let it remind you that every challenge carries a lesson and every action creates change. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected with stories that spark thought and empower growth. Until next time, remember, your voice matters, your actions count, and together we build a brighter world. But then something unexpected happened. The sun was just beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the river, and the air was filled with laughter. One of the girls at the river, Amina, with her mischievous grin, scooped up a handful of water and playfully splashed it on Ada. Ada squealed in surprise, her laughter echoing across the riverbanks. But then, right away, something strange began to happen. Ada's eyes widened as she looked down at her arms. Her skin shimmered in the fading sunlight, but it wasn't just water reflecting back. Her skin was changing. Slowly, her soft brown skin began to take on a silvery, scaly texture. She gasped, feeling an odd tingling sensation running up her limbs. Once upon a time, in a serene African village, there lived a woman named Said and her husband, Ada. They had been married for many years, yet they were childless. Said had conceived several times, but each pregnancy ended in miscarriage just after a few weeks. The husband's family, who lived in a compound near the village square, suggested he marry another woman, believing Said to be a witch who used her miscarriages for witchcraft rituals. However, Adi deeply loved her and remained confident in his belief that one day Said would bear him a child. After many years, Said became pregnant again. The villagers, skeptical based on past events, anticipated another miscarriage. They whispered among themselves during evening gatherings, saying, "This is how she always gets pregnant." But just after a few weeks, she would use it for a ritual. But against all odds, Said carried the pregnancy beyond 9 months, and to the villagers' astonishment, she gave birth to twins, two beautiful girls named Ada and Ijay. This was an unprecedented event in the village, as twins had never been born there before. The village rejoiced at Saad's blessing. People from all around came to her house, showering her with gifts, for twins were considered a great blessing. The village elders even performed a special blessing ceremony with drumming and dancing to honor the arrival of the twins. As Ada and Ije grew, they became beloved figures in the village. Men and women would visit just to spend time with them, some even taking them out to treat them with gifts and then returning them safely. The twins were like rays of sunshine, adored by everyone in the village. Ada and Iji, the twins, grew up, and their charm was like a spell on the villagers. Everyone loved them, but one day something strange happened that showed the villagers another side of these twins. Amaka, a well-known trader in the village, often took the twins with her. One day she took them to the bustling market. The market was filled with the sounds of traders calling out their wares, and the smell of spices and roasted yams filled the air. Unaware to Amaka, Ada and EJ started eating her food. Amaka, furious, scolded and beat them. But the twins, instead of crying, just laughed. They told Amaka that the marks from the beating would appear on her own daughter when she returned home. Amaka dismissed their words as mere child's talk. But when Amaka got home, she was shocked. Her daughter was there, crying, with marks on her back, exactly where Amaka had beaten the twins. She couldn't understand how this happened. Amaka told the villagers about it, but nobody believed her. They thought maybe she was dreaming or making it up, but this incident changed how the village saw the twins. The more Ada and Iji grew, the more mysterious they became. Their ability to transfer pain to others sowed a mix of fear and awe in the hearts of the villagers. The twins, once seen as a blessing, were now also viewed with caution, their powers a source of wonder and concern. As Ada and EJ, the twins, grew, their mysterious powers became more noticeable. One day, they accidentally crossed paths with a feared old woman in the village, known for her harshness and quick temper. This encounter revealed yet another astonishing aspect of the twins' abilities. While playing near the edge of the village, the twins accidentally knocked over the old woman's cooking pot, spilling the porridge she was cooking. The pot had been hanging over a small fire, and the smell of the porridge had filled the air. Knowing how wicked and dangerous the old woman was, they immediately apologized. They tried to explain it was a mistake, but the old woman, enraged, started to curse them and even made them kneel down, holding heavy stones as punishment. The twins, distressed with the punishment despite their apology, uttered a chilling curse of their own on the old woman. They declared that whenever the old woman tried to enter her hut, it would keep moving further away, always out of reach. The old woman dismissing the words as mere childish threats, just like Amaka. She soon discovered the terrifying truth. As she attempted to enter her hut, it seemed to move further away. No matter how much she walked towards it, she walked and walked and walked, but her goal kept getting a step further. Exhausted and frightened, she begged the twins for forgiveness. The villagers who had gathered around were astounded. The same woman who had instilled fear in them for years was now pleading with the young twins. This event significantly altered the villagers' perception of Ada and EJ. The twins, once adored for their charm, were now both revered and feared for their powers. They had made the fearsome old woman beg for mercy, something no one in the village had ever imagined possible. The twins had become powerful figures, respected and somewhat feared in the hearts of the villagers. As Ada and EJ got older, things in the village started to change for them. The special powers that once made everyone love and pay attention to them now made people scared. The villagers, who used to be charmed by the twins, now kept away from them because they were afraid of what the twins could do. This fear changed how people acted around Ada and IJ. Even the young men in the village, who might have liked to be their friends or more, didn't want to get close to them anymore. Being near the twins and their strange powers was too scary for them. Ada and Iji started to feel alone. Their powers, which were amazing, made it hard for them to make friends or be close to anyone. Feeling lonely and wanting to be just like other young people in the village, Ada and Iji wished they could play, laugh, and make friends without making others scared. They wanted a normal life, just like everyone else. This wish made them think about breaking one important rule their mother had always told them: never to go near the river. Their mom was always very serious about this rule, but she never told them why. Being curious and wanting to change their lonely life, Ada and IJ decided to go to the river, a place they had always been told to avoid. This choice, made because they wanted to escape their loneliness, was the beginning of a big change in their lives. Ada and Iji, excited for an adventure and wanting to fit in, made their way to the river. The river was always busy with people washing clothes, fetching water, swimming, and having fun in the cool water. The laughter of children and the chatter of women filled the air as they worked along the riverbank. The twins wanted to be a part of this, to play and be like the other villagers without worries or fears. At first, the presence of the twins caused fear and confusion. People began to leave, packing up their belongings and quickly moving away from the water. The twins, however, called out to them, pleading for a chance to be seen as just another part of the community. They assured everyone that they meant no harm. They only wanted to play and share in the joy of the river. Slowly, some people decided to stay. They were careful at first, but then things started to feel normal again. The twins were laughing and playing with the others, and it looked like their dream of being just like everyone else was coming true. But then something unexpected happened. One of the girls at the river playfully splashed water on Ada. Right away, Ada started to change. Her skin began to look like fish scales, shimmering in the sunlight, and she was turning into a fish. Ig, trying to help her sister, also touched the water and started changing too. Everyone was scared and didn't know what to do. They ran to get Sade, the twins' mother. When Sade came, she saw her daughters turning into river creatures. She was heartbroken, crying as she watched this strange thing happening to her daughters. Her sadness filled the air by the river, showing how helpless she felt as her daughters changed in a way no one could understand. When Ada and Ig changed at the river, everyone in the village was shocked and confused. In all this trouble, the village priest came up with a big secret about the twins. He said that Ada and Ig were actually children of the river goddess. This was a secret Sade, their mother, had kept to herself because she was so scared. Sade then told everyone the truth. She was so afraid of losing her husband and her place in the village that she had gone to see an herbalist a long time ago. The herbalist asked the river goddess to give Sade children, but there was one big rule. The children must never touch the river, or they would go back to the river goddess. There was no way to change the twins back, and now everyone knew they belonged to the river goddess. But there's more to the story. Sade, desperate to help her daughters, went to find the herbalist who had helped her before. She traveled through thick forests and crossed small streams, her feet aching, but her determination unwavering. But when she got to the herbalist's place, she found out he had died a few years ago. There was no other way to help the twins. With no other way, the village had to make a very sad choice. With lots of crying and praying, they took Ada and Ije back to the river giving them back to the goddess. But then something amazing happened. The river took Ada and made her one of its own, but it sent EJ back to land as a human again. Everyone was amazed to see the power and kindness of the river goddess. Said and EJ hugged each other on the riverbank, both happy and sad. They had gone through so much. They had to learn how to live with missing Ada, who was now part of the river, and remember everything that had happened. Said learned a big lesson: to always wait for God's time because it is always the best. You see, the story of Ada and Iji, the twins people once called evil, turned into a story about love, trust, and accepting things. In the village, it showed that sometimes the best things happen in ways you don't expect, and that life's mysteries can teach important lessons. Said and EJ, their lives changed by what they went through, found peace and learned to be thankful every day. They always felt a special connection to the river, which had given them so much and also taken away. Thank you for joining us for the remarkable journey of Ada and EJ. This story of love, resilience, and the mysteries of life reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the deepest lessons. Remember, no matter the challenges, patience and trust in a higher plan can bring peace and transformation. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more enchanting tales. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us, and we look forward to bringing you more captivating stories. Until next time, stay curious and keep believing in the magic of life's mysteries.